Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GothamChess Slow Run. This is episode number 10. In case you have missed the first 9 episodes, or you are watching out of order, in this series, I'm playing on an authorized account on chess.com. I'm going up the rating ladder. I'm explaining my thought process and what you can expect from the thought process of a person at the level that I'm playing every step of the way. In this episode, we will finally cross 700 ELO. But I still think most of the principles that we have been applying in all the previous episodes will still help you win. I don't think anything crazy special is going to happen until we probably approach around 900, 1,000 rapid rating on chess.com. As I've been saying throughout the series, if you like the way I explain things, if you like some of the openings that I'm playing, you should check out Chessly. It's my educational platform. We're going to have a fun end to the year. December is going to be huge, putting out new courses, doing a massive holiday challenge. We will likely have some other, fun events. So just make sure to check it out. And 2026 will be exciting as well. We've got Chess for Babies coming out for those of you that are babies or know a baby. How to Win at Chess 2 Next Level is going to come out. So super exciting. My book for intermediate and early advanced. Can't wait to share that with all of you. And without further ado, let's play some chess. Let's learn a couple of things. We've got the World Cup going on right now in chess, but why not improve our own chess game? First game, my opponent plays the move pawn to e4. I've been playing a lot of different openings. Let's play the Scandinavian defense and see what's up. Scandinavian is something that I think I've played more than anything else. If I have another opportunity in this video, I will play a Sicilian. So my opponent is just under 700, and on the second move, plays the move queen to h5. Now, the idea is obviously to, again, go for some sort of scholar's mate. The best move in this position by far is to develop the knight and immediately attack the queen and the pawn. But I just want to show you how there really is nothing to fear here, even if you fall into the biggest possible trap, which of course, and by trap, I just mean, this. So you could play pawn to g6, blocking the queen. Let's just play like super passive. Let's just block this bishop. We know that blocking with the pawn is very effective. At the end of episode 9, I played a Sicilian defense and somebody tried to scholars mate me there. The move pawn to e6 just kind of takes the wind out of all of that. Now, at some point, my opponent should probably... I'm expecting the move knight to c3 because you can no longer play knight f3. This move also makes sense. The idea would be to continue to try to checkmate me. In general, this is going to be the best antidote. Now, my opponent might go here trying to mate me and hang their queen, although I kind of doubt that. I feel like this is a very natural thing to spot. But now that the queen will no longer see this pawn, this is all very fruitless. Queen e5. This move is also not very accurate because it allows me to develop my other knight with a tempo. Tempo meaning you are actually doing something with the move, generally attacking. You are winning time. The queen has to move for white, or the bishop has to pin the knight to the king, which is a fine move, but again, white is just losing time. And notice that I am sticking to good principles. This is actually not that bad of a move. Mostly for the reason that now I cannot develop my bishop. But what's funny is, I actually can. I think some people would blunder this pawn by developing their bishop, putting it on the d6 square. But it's actually not as bad as it looks. And another thing that you can do here is generally against these like early queen attacks, I like to just go straight into my opponent's position and immediately go for like a counterattack. But let's just see what happens. Let's see what happens if I accidentally blunder, this pawn completely on g7. Oh, man. All right, first game's going to be fast. Folks, like, what's crazy? Statistically speaking, like, 25 to 30% of you are around this level. I did a poll a long time ago. Over 90% of people are... I'm just going to castle. I'm just going to be principled. Even if we have opened up the rook to our king, it's not really a fishing pole. When you're up a queen, a lot of the old principles kind of go out the window. Like, you're up a queen, Anyway, I was going to say, statistically speaking, 95% of people are below 1800 rapid online. Like, if you're above that, you are an excellent player. You might not feel like an excellent player because chess is hard, but I promise you, you're an excellent player. You have to go back. There is absolutely nothing here. A knight and a rook cannot do anything to a king that's castled. At this point, look, you can start making more threats. Like, in this position, because you're up a queen, you have a lot of luxury. So I'm just going to go knight to e5. That move simultaneously attacks the bishop and goes directly for the king. Yeah, my opponent just resigns. That was a rough game to start, but yeah, this is why you just really, like, if you're going to be a player that brings the queen out early, that's fine, but you own the responsibility of keeping the queen safe. As we know, in the Scandinavian defense, we do bring our queen out early as well, but against knight to c3, there are all sorts of moves, and putting the queen to the outskirts of the board, which is my Scandinavian course, which I'm advocating for the Scandinavian course on Chessly in particular, and the e4 Vienna with white, because those are, in my opinion, by far the most effective openings up until around 1200. Like, the Scandinavian is so easy. You just have a very easy opening. And if you're not good with the queen out early, that's fine. But, you know, even if you don't play it right, like, if you just develop your pieces like this, and then they target your queen, and the second they start targeting your queen, you just make a little getaway, and you get right back here, and then you just castle, put all the pieces out. It's such an easy opening, because white doesn't have any way to, you know, to mess around, to, like, make your life too complicated. Now, again, I never really got to show you what to do here, which I will show you. For the record, the best move here from the computer is, in fact, to play knight to d4 to attack this pawn. White would go bishop b3. And now the computer is like, yeah, just go here anyway. It's completely unafraid of losing this pawn. Why is it unafraid of losing this pawn? Okay, first of all, when you take, the rook will go here. Taking the pawn next to a rook like this is effective if the rook is trapped. If the rook is not trapped and everything else is protected, the queen protects the knight, which protects the rook, the knight protects the pawn, the king protects the pawn, I have very bad news. Your queen has to go here, and then on the next move, I will just immediately take this pawn. So not only do I win a pawn back, you will never castle, and the game is very mildly chaotic. I say mildly chaotic because this is, of course, a very random position. And at a 700, you might blunder something. You might just forget something is standing somewhere. But it's mildly chaotic because there are no threats. It's not truly chaotic. Like, if you just apply the philosophy of drawing arrows like this, like pointing the opponent's pieces at yours, there's no threat. Even a move like this, which looks extremely scary, extremely dangerous, loses by force. Just straight up loses by force. How does it lose by force? The knight and the queen are on the same line like this. So it looks like, first of all, this move wins. Not quite, because white can protect the knight. But you can go bishop to f8. So the queen is hanging. The queen has to go here. And now you go rook to g4. And the queen has to give up the knight completely. So it is not that chaotic. It really isn't. And provided that your rook can actually move and has this mobility, and there's a pawn on the other side, you will win the pawn back right away. B and G pawns, okay? B2, B7, G2, G7 are called poison pawns. Really, B is called the poison pawn, but those pawns, when they are taken, oftentimes allow the rook to immediately activate, particularly when a side has not castled. So there's your little nugget of wisdom. All right, let's approach 700. Let's go back to King's Pawn. We've played some Londons. Let's play King's Pawn. They're playing a French defense, or maybe they're just playing whatever on earth this is. 2 pawns in the center, if we can, in the opening, is a good strategy. And again, we have a queen in the game. Just utterly ridiculous, to be honest. Like, I did not know this was such an epidemic at this level. I really had no idea. Look, 2 knights in the center is perfectly reasonable. Honestly, even pawn here. Like, when I see a bishop come out and I can just create this wall, I just like to do this because you'll never break through this. Now bishop to d3 or bishop c4. The reason I didn't put the bishop on this square is because the pawn is there. And just like we've been blocking the bishop with black, there's no point, you know, allowing this with white. Now, look, first of all here, I mean, I am so close to winning this game just outright. Like, number one, I see this move, and I see a trade, and I see that I can push and attack the queen, and I see that I can also ignore. I hope you have gotten strong enough from this slow runner. Generally, taking is a bad move here. It's not a mistake, but it's just a bad move. Like, you activate the bishop for black. E5 is a very good move. Ignoring is also a very good move, as long as you can make an improvement. So I would love to play E5, but I'm actually going to do something else. I am going to force the queen to stay out here. And I'm going to show you how very easy it is to punish people who play like this. My opponent's only move now is queen to g6. That is the only move that doesn't lose the game. Now, anywhere I move the bishop, the pawn, the bishop would be attacking the queen. If I go attack the queen with the knight, my knight guards my bishop. That is a very important distinction, and then I would be losing this piece. Now, pushing is good and taking is good. Actually, both are good. So I'm going to play pawn takes pawn. Now I'm just up a pawn. I've just won a pawn because the queen's hanging. Now, the queen could go here, which is what I expected. And now I can just very easily take another pawn and castle my king. I can also play pawn to h3 and pawn to g4. That looks very effective. That actually looks like I'm going to be trapping the queen. Not quite. Because if pawn to h3, pawn takes here, and if g4, my opponent can take, and I can't take because my rook is pinned. Would a 680 player see that? Probably not. Probably not. So I'm playing h3 with the intention to play the move pawn to g4. Will my opponent spot that defensive counterattack? h3 to just trap the queen on the next move. That's the idea. Now, I had an even better move, which I would have found if I used checks, captures, attacks. And sometimes I feign ignorance to see if, you're following along. f5, pawn to f5. Stop my idea of going pawn to g4. It's actually a very reasonable move. So if I had looked for checks, captures, attacks, I would have realized I have two checks with my bishop and with my queen. The queen check actually attacks the king and the bishop at the same time. Normally, that check would be defended with the knight to c6. You can't do that anymore because I would be taking the knight. So I'm just simply winning material. So queen a4 check here is devastating for black. Now, what has changed when I move my queen here? I no longer defend my knight and I no longer defend my bishop, but they're fine. And that is very important in chess to understand what the queen used to do even on its home square. And now I would just simply be winning a bishop. Not too much has changed in the position. My opponent went here. Our pawns are still staring at each other. The queen is staring at the bishop, but it's defended. It's also staring at the knight, but that's defended. So pawn takes d5. And now I can just take back with the queen. It's just a free pawn. I also could have taken this pawn, which is probably better because it was deeper in the territory. But sometimes in the slow run, I autopilot some moves. I'm expecting one of these moves, like a move that... Okay, so this is not really paying any attention to my queen. I have a check. I can also take this pawn. This looks absolutely devastating for black, I have to say. Like, the whole position's falling apart. And the major difference between this queen capture and the queen capture in the previous game... So, in the previous game, I mean, I will show you after, but in the previous game, I was playing with black and my, the queen came in kind of like this. But I told you, things were not so safe for me. Things were much safer for me. Sometimes my brain skips a step in what I'm trying to say. Things were safer for me last game. Everything was protected. In this case, nothing is protected, and my opponent will lose another little bit of material. So this was 2 games in this video. So far, we have punished early queen attacks. Really, this is a slow run of punishing early queen play. And our queen play is very different because when our queen comes out, it's not nonsense. We are not playing hope chess. We are immediately punishing opponents' mistakes. Hey, good philosophy, bishop takes knight, you are winning, just simplify. Now the king is going to have to be in the middle. Now we have a million moves here. Mini lesson. You have 6 minutes and 50 seconds on the clock. Some of you like to play blitz. In a position like this, and in many positions in chess, you have a lot of good moves. You probably have 15 good moves in this position. Taking a pawn, knight d2. Just make a move and make it fast. because you're going to need the time later in the game. And this will really help against people who play very fast in blitz, in 5-minute chess, in 3-minute chess, in rapid as well, you know? But in positions where you have like 10 different moves, as long as you're not blundering anything, obviously, you have to trust yourself to move a little faster. My next move is probably rook to e1 check. Very simple move. Very simple move. I'm looking at the queen. I'm monitoring the queen. Anything can happen here. I don't think so. 1 second. I don't know what this move does. Let's just check the king. I still haven't gotten my knight or rook into the game. I'd like to get my queen a little bit closer over here. Maybe I want to jump my knight into the center. Okay, so I'm looking. Should I get my knight out? Should I move my knight forward? Should I maybe go queen in to attack the rook? Let's jump our knight into the position. That move doesn't really... there's no blundering. We're not blundering anything. It's very well protected. Yeah, look, like every move now. Now our knight sees the bishop. Maybe next move I'll just take it because I know that I'm winning. I'm up 8 points of material here. So go a little faster, all right? I'll try to make some moves a little bit faster. If the rook pins me, then I won't be taking the bishop because then I would lose my rook, right? So at that point, it would be smart for me to get my other knight into the game because I'm up 2 knights. How can you be up 2 knights but not use them? My opponent deep in thought. But what's funny is people start spending all their time in chess. Okay, the bishop goes back. It's not doing too much. Let's just bring the second knight into the game. Is it the best move? I have no idea. But we have like 100 good moves. Maybe we give a check on the next move. Maybe we bring that knight forward. Maybe we bring the knight to that square and defend the knight. By the way, we can also double our rooks. Don't forget, your rooks work together. Stack them vertically, horizontally, whatever. However you want. Let's see what happens. Opponent still thinking. Anyway, I think openings are going to start becoming more relevant at like I said, 900, 1000. People will actually play a little bit more traditionally in the sense of following principles and so on. I'm just going to take the bishop. I'm not even going to hesitate. Oh, queens see each other. As I've said a lot, you can win games by checkmate. You can win games by going into the endgame. I will be doubling my rooks, and then we're going to use our rooks to win a bunch of the pawns. If we have an opportunity to trade pieces, we will. I'm going to give a check because if the king goes here, in comes my bishop, and it's almost checkmate. And I kind of doubt my opponent will run the king into the center. But maybe they will. I don't know. Like, generally, you would think you would hide behind the pawn and walk directly into bishop a6. Okay, I bring my second rook. And the way you win a position like this is you just go to the last rank of the board. I mean, last 2 ranks. Rook's on the 7th rank. 2 rooks teaming up like this. Absolutely devastating. Or you can weave a checkmate net. My opponent's probably going to take a pawn and attack my knight, but that move is losing because I would, first of all, be able to sneak to the back rank and attack everything. And second of all, black is running out of moves for the king. So if I get to play bishop c4, they're going to take my knight and they're going to get checkmated on d8. Because the black king now no longer has a legal move. It is completely surrounded. The only way not to get mated here would be to play rook back to b8. And that move would result in mate in, let's say, a few moves. I cannot see an immediate checkmate, but I would probably bring my second rook down and just bulldoze. One more important thing, I always have a getaway square for my king. So just the way the opening turned out, it just worked out in my favor. And that's mate. The king has been absolutely surrounded. So from this position, I checkmated in 5 moves. And that is something a lot of you, even rated like 1200, can learn. Because, you know, these slow runs, yes, I'm playing 700s right now. But if you're 1200 and you have a winning position, but you only have 40 seconds on the clock, you need to know the most efficient way to win. And there's still stuff you can learn. I brought my rook forward to double my rook. I gave this check because if the king went this way, I had my bishop arriving there just in a second. And if the king went this way, I applied the philosophy of rooks on the 7th rank. Now, another move you could have played here with white is like, oh, the rook is attacking my pawn, just push the pawn. I mean, I would have completely been okay with this move. And then after that, you begin, punishing, because when you go here, you have to be very, very aware there is nothing even being lost here. Like, there is nothing scary. I will even go a step further. When you play the move rook to d7, you need to see this move. A handful of you would have not even seen this move. And that's not good, because right now it's okay, but in the future, a move like that will lose you the game. You'll hang mate in 1. You'll have a king here, there's going to be a queen over there, and it happens. So as long as you're keeping everything safe and controlled and good, then you're going to be in good shape. Then you're not going to be allowing counterplay. In this particular game, I had time and material advantage, and my opponent had a very, very weak king. Now, again, in the opening, we got a +2 advantage on move 4. Like, already we have literally a +2 advantage because of how our opponent played. I just developed my pieces. I was going to castle. When this move came, so bishop g5 is +5, and that is the move that I played. This move is only +2.2, and pushing is around the same. It's like +2.2. The best move is, oh, you want the queen out? Okay, now you really are going to have the queen out and about in the position. This move allows the queen to go back, and it's not bad. White still has a very, very strong position here, and the way you would play this position is you have a very strong wall, so you would focus on kingside attack. So, for example, castle, knight e7, bishop to f4, castle. You can already even do a Greek gift sacrifice. This is only protected by the king. This is possible, and queen h5 is possible, and you would just be launching an evisceration on the king side. When your opponent plays like this and loses so much time in the opening, moving the queen, then moving it back, moving the bishop, then moving it back, moving the queen a bunch more times, right? All this stuff. You will get an overwhelming advantage very easily. Now, pawn to h3, bad move. Slow move. Allows pawn takes pawn, and this can be defended by bishop g4. Now, had this happened, I actually was going to play into this. Had this happened, the position would have been equal. I cannot take the bishop, and I also have to defend myself over here, like this. And then my opponent would have had to play on. I actually think I still would have won this game. Shocking, because I'm, a little higher than 600, but it is totally easy to blunder something ridiculous like this. h3, g4 is for the more advanced players that are watching. Pawn takes, and bishop here is a very nice counterattack. But of course, my opponent played f5. They saw that I was trying to trap the queen. All their problems started, all of this started because they brought their queen out. That's it. Okay, we are breaking 700. I'm going to play a Sicilian defense. I'm going to try to play a Dragon Sicilian. Will we have 3 games of Scholars Mate in one episode? This would actually be mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing if this happened. Oh my goodness, could it actually be happening? Okay, no. Now, in the Dragon, we play pawn to g6 and bishop to g7. This is the idea of the Dragon Sicilian. I'm kind of expecting this on the next move. Or they're going to play knight f3, knight g5. That's also possible. Okay, we play bishop g7. So we see we have these pieces set up like this, targeting white's center. In fact, the bishop already targets this pawn because of the way that white played this. And the bishop is standing on the wrong square. This is why you need to develop the knights first, because you don't know where the bishops are going to go. I developed my knight and my bishop, then I will develop my knight. Okay, pawn to c3. We can develop the knight in the middle of the board like this and try to castle. Now, white could already move forward. Normally, what I would say is if you can avoid being attacked by a pawn in the center with like this, that would be the right thing to do. In this particular instance, it doesn't really matter because we would have moved our knight and immediately countered the bishop and immediately countered the pawn, which we will look at in a moment. So this is the Dragon Sicilian. With the Sicilian defense, you fight for the center with a side pawn, a flank pawn. Your 2 other center pawns remain, and you try to break in the center in some way. Now, right now, I have literally carte blanche in the center of the board, meaning I can play d6 and e5, d5 straight away because it's protected twice, e5 and d5. I can play everything all at once. I'm going to move my d-pawn because I also activate my bishop. So I'm going to play pawn to d5. That move is supported by my knight and my queen. If there is a trade in the center of the board, I would be improving my position because I would be getting one of the bishops. Just a very small advantage. We know that a bishop is slightly better than a knight. However, if I were to take this knight, I would be extremely happy since the king would be open. So, pawn to c4 attacks my queen. Where do I move my queen? I can move it forward, I can move it this way or this way, but there I would be taken, so I don't think doubling my pawns on the h-file is particularly good. I can move the queen out into the open like this. Let me tell you why this is a bad move. This is a bad move because A, blocks the bishop, B, directly in the line of the opponent, important to think about that, and C, you know, the knight would enter the game. I don't really want to do that. This move actually I kind of like because it attacks this pawn that looks quite nice, and it's quite difficult to defend that, I have to say. And also this move keeps an eye on the bishop, which is protected by the knight, which my bishop can take. So I'm going to go here. And I think my opponent is going to spot this and block it with the knight, but forget about bishop takes and then queen takes bishop. Now, the best move would be to retreat the bishop all the way, get it completely out of danger. At 700, I'm not sure you can spot that. And right on cue, now we remove the knight from the board, and the bishop has lost its guard. There is something in this position my opponent can play called a Zwischenzug, an in-between move. Ooh, they spotted it. Now they would like to take my bishop on the next turn. So, queen is hanging, bishop is hanging. You know that they're going to play pawn takes bishop. You could play here or here. Both of those moves defend the bishop. So you would at least gain a pawn. But what if we prevented the capture completely by playing queen to g4? Pinning the pawn to the king. And my opponent blocks the queen trade, thinking my queen has to move away and release the bishop, but instead, they did not even think. They didn't even think. They spent 4.0 seconds on the move pawn to f3 and blundered queen takes g2. Folks, you are going to be sitting at home going, you are paying these people to lose to you. And I am. I admit it. No, I'm just kidding. You are missing these opportunities in your own games. I swear. Like, I swear. Like, I explain my thought process every step of the way. And, you know, people, this is such a common mistake, pawn to f3. It's the mistake of I attack a piece and I don't even think where it's going to move. I attack the queen because I don't want a queen trade, because if my opponent traded queens with me, my bishop would have escaped the danger. And they just say, pawn to f3, get out. But what they failed to realize is, I'm not in a defensive position anymore. My bishop was in a threatened situation, but this is a pin and an attack on the king, and I win. Now, how quickly that got out of order. How did we win another game in 13 moves? How did we do that? Well, it's actually because our opponents are not playing principled chess. That's literally it. So this is all fine. You know, this is all good. Bishop f4, this is all completely, you know, again, I wouldn't go bishop f4 because you know your knight belongs on this square. You don't know your bishop belongs on this square in this opening. Your knights belong in the center. So what did I do? I just developed my pieces. I did not do anything like mind-blowing. But when I see this is already a deviation from what you are supposed to do. And why is it a deviation? Because in all positions, my bishop will be able to take your knight. That is why the knight should go to the middle. They want to avoid these things. They want to fight more actively and aggressively. I don't know why my opponent didn't play knight f3. I don't know. But look, I played in the center, and the second I could have put another pawn in the middle of the board, that's what I did. And pawn to d5 is the best move. Pawn to d6 is a close second. Pawn to e5 is not bad. Why pawn to e5 is not a particularly great move, even though it attacks a bishop and it's protected. White responds here, and even though my knight is defended, I lose control of the center. I no longer can play the move pawn to d5 because my knight is pinned. So what would I do here? Pawn to h6. This is what I would have played. The problem is that after bishop takes, and whatever you take back with, you now lose the option to play pawn to d5 completely, because white defends that very nicely, and the position is equal. But when I did it like this, I managed to activate with one move. With one move, I activated 4 pieces at the same time, basically. Look, 1, 2, my queen got involved, and with this move, I activated the bishop, and I activated the knight to participate in the game. One move, one pawn break activated 4 of my pieces. That is the effectiveness of using your pieces in a coordinated manner. That is how it works. That is how it works. Now, look at this. -1. This position already -2.5. This position -4. This position -5. And this position mate in 1. An avalanche after the queen got out into the middle of the board. Why did all of this happen? Because white put pieces on the wrong squares. When you set yourself up for failure in the long run, you will fail generally. I mean, it's really, this is not the way the position is supposed to look. Look, I'm in the middle. I put my bishop back here. I fianchettoed it, fianchetto. I put it like a little house. G6, bishop G7, pointing at the center of the board. Now white had to make another move, but in attacking my queen, you know, white opened up all my pieces. I could have even went all the way back. I would have had a huge advantage because it doesn't matter. I would have then taken, and white's king would have been open. I would have went queen d7. I would have put my knight here. Would have went rook d8, attacking this pawn, and slowly I would have probably won the game anyway, even if I was 700. All right, let's end. This is the strongest player that we've played so far. I'm going to play pawn to e4. 2 pawns in the center as always. We know our philosophy. Pawn to e5. Okay, let's go knight to f3. We've graduated. We're actually playing quite a strong, deep 700 rated player. Okay, pawn to d6. This is called the Philidor defense, but you don't have to know that. Against it, you can still put 2 pawns in the center. Because when they take, you will take with a knight. Actually, an even better move is taking with the queen. And you'll see why. Because I want to castle queenside. Generally, your approach as you get better and better at chess should be against specific things that the opponent is playing. I would like to play a certain way. I'd like to play a type of setup as opposed to memorizing a lot of moves. So my opponent could be playing what's called a black lion. Yeah, I actually think that is what my opponent is playing. So my opponent is playing an opening called the black lion, but we're 700. We have no idea what a black lion is. We're just going to develop our pieces. Now, there we go. Now we see the kind of sneaky idea of the lion. Out of nowhere, we get walloped with this move. Okay, let's slide back. Maybe they're going to try to trap our bishop with pawn to a5, pawn to a4, or maybe pawn to b4 will attack us. So we don't know. We're like, let's try to adapt on the fly here. The pawns are still staring at each other. Okay. We still need to castle. We need to develop the other bishop. Queen b6. What is the idea of this move? It targets my center. But I'm protecting it twice. So I guess we just castle. Okay, that move definitely doesn't do anything. I mean, so let's develop our bishop. We can move our bishop here, here. Well, there it kind of looks okay, but I would be careful walking into pawn attacks. How about this move? Just setting up a very nice attack against the queen, and our opponent doesn't even stop for a second to think about why I put my bishop there. So now we take a pawn for free, and we attack the queen. So now we just won a pawn. We actually did a very similar thing 2 games ago. For the record, when the king went this way, another pawn was free. Just totally free pawn. We can also play knight g5 and try to fork there. So c5. Okay, so this move comes in. What has happened? The queen has been blocked. This bishop has been opened. Very important. This could be possible, but not right away, because they would lose their queen. Our pawn is still here. So let's just keep chopping. I mean, we just got 2 pawns. Now, I'm looking at the position, and I'm spotting that that is also a free pawn. Should I take it? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with taking yet another free pawn. So now I have 2 extra pawns. There was something else hidden in this position, which was a higher level tactic, but we will get to that. So the knight comes out. What is it doing? It's targeting my pawn on e4. with this bishop. I can't go there. Okay. How do I guard my pawn? Maybe I bring the bishop to be in between. Maybe that's an option. Another option is maybe to run my knight over here to guard the pawn. I can also bring my queen to defend the pawn. So all those moves look okay. I prefer to trade some pieces since I'm up 2 pawns. So I'm going to go bishop to d5. And now I'm going to take with the knight because I attacked the queen. That can't be bad. Okay. I can take with the pawn or with the queen. I mean, they both look fine. I can see myself, infiltrating over here. That actually could be really nasty. Now, here's the funny thing about this position. If in this position you just autopiloted infiltration, you would lose the game. It would actually be really funny. Because you would go queen a8 and the opponent would go king c7 and then your queen would be trapped. That would be extremely tragic. So you have to think, what's the follow-up? There's another really nasty way you could lose, which I will show you, which is why I would prefer, let's give this check. Check. They can block, they can move the king. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? By the way, I'm already seeing pawn fork. That can't be a bad move. Just can't be. I mean, it just cannot be a bad move. I just see a way to attack 2 pieces at the same time. Okay. That attacks the queen, but it used to guard the knight. I can just take this. I don't see anything, I just take. Now I attack this, and I'm still attacking over here. That's a good move. So I'm attacked. I cannot take because then the rook would take me. So I can go here, there, or there. I don't know which of those moves is the best one. Let's go here. I like this move. I'm pinning the rook to the king. That looks pretty effective. And the bishop is still under pressure. If the bishop moves, I take the queen on the next move because I'm winning. I'm more than happy to trade the queen. Did I have to? No, I didn't have to trade the queen. This is a like very, very decent player, but I just played logically in the opening. I adapted to every move that I saw. I tried to explain every move that I saw. And then they just blundered a pawn. 2 pawns. They just gave me 2 pawns. And since then, we've kind of been playing, Okay, this pawn to e6 doesn't look bad. The problem is, if you send a pawn in like this, what's the follow-up to simply it being attacked, right? You would rush, the rook would go here, you wouldn't have enough. So why not just trade a rook? Simple chess. This guards this guards this. Double the rooks. We've already been over this. Doubling the rooks. Going together. Hey, making a little fort for my king. Just making sure I never get back rank mated. Okay. We've traded a rook off. That's actually a huge win for us. The bishops are standing behind a pawn. So if this comes in, yeah, well, I mean, we're not even going to think. We're just going to immediately take. Now our rook can probably start hunting pawns. The only way we can lose this is a back rank checkmate or like this. This is the only way we can lose. Okay. Or we could lose this position by losing a bunch of pawns and allowing a promotion. Folks, when your rook is attacked, you don't have to move it. You can defend it. Like pawn to a4, for example, is a very nice move here. There's the back rank mate threat. It would have been much better for us on the previous move to have played the move knight to d4. So now you can run your king out into the open, or you can just play pawn to h3. This is the tried and true approach of not getting back rank mated. And now we need to save our rook. So we can't push this pawn. Okay, let's go here and see if my opponent finds king c5. So we could protect, but let's pretend like... They're a very smart player. Very, very smart player. So, okay, like, obviously we don't want to draw, right? So we got to think, what do we do? Let's go pawn to e6. Let's get our rook out this way. So we might have to chuck the rook. We go here. We're setting a trap. They're going to take... We have a fork. Maybe it's not a trap. Maybe you just find this move organically. And now you just make another queen. You just make another queen. Just make another queen. You could lose your rook, really. It doesn't matter, but let's not lose the rook. And we will beat our highest rated player of the slow run. And now we have to get a ladder. There are 2 pawns remaining on the board, so there are no stalemates, really. Now we can play rook to d8. We will walk the king over. And you could be comfortable with a ladder like this, so let's just slide over here and do the ladder mate. Check. Check. Alternate. 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 Maybe they go here. Okay, no, they did not. And now we do the easiest mate of all. The ladder mate, the queen and the rook, or the queen and the queen, or sometimes the rook and the rook, just bouncing the king around, not letting the king get through. And that was, you know, that was a much better game. I'm already seeing, that's crazy. Like, it's so obvious that just like one player into the deep 700s already was playing a real opening. Already was playing something called the Black Lion, which is a very respectable system. But like immediately after the opening made a mistake, and this is just not, I mean, you cannot have +3 on move 9. You just cannot. The Black Lion is a cool opening, but in the Black Lion, you have to play moves like knight f6. You have to be careful. There is a tactic with knight to g5. So you have to play bishop e7, castle, knight f6, and like look at the evaluation. I mean, it's equal. Just an equal game. You know, black plays like this, and it's a little bit passive. The bishop is sort of stuck, but it's a very, very resilient position. It's very difficult for white to break through. So white would still have to make developing moves and you know, like typical stuff. But my opponent went here, here, here. I just played good principled moves, and immediately they hung a pawn. And then they gave me a second pawn, and then I was like, let's trade pieces. So that's what I did. And this was the most instructive moment. A lot of people would autopilot infiltrating, and there would be no way home, and the queen would just be gone. Now, the way you would bounce back here, if you made this mistake, is you would need to sack the queen for the rook, and then you would have to find the move e5. And now you are not totally lost. Not totally lost. You would just be much worse, but you would not be totally lost. You would have a bishop and a rook for a queen. Hey, for the record, this was another person who brought their queen out early and immediately got punished for it. So even though people are putting their queen on a more responsible square, it's still such an important part of people's openings. You see, it's like 3 points on the table, you know? I hope this was instructive. Please continue to let me know your feedback in the comment section. This was episode 10. You know where to find me. I've got books. I've got Chessly. Yeah. Enjoy and get out of here.